Within seconds, the routine delivery turned violent. The driver was attacked while unloading, forced away from the shipment he was responsible for. There was no warning and no time to react. The attackers didn't grab random boxes. They didn't take the entire load. Instead, they went straight for specific cartons. How did they know exactly which boxes were worth taking? They ignored everything else. No attempt to enter the store, no interest in cash or valuables. Just a few boxes, lifted quickly, handled carefully, and then they ran. From the moment they approached the driver to the moment they disappeared, less than 2 minutes had passed. So what was inside those boxes that made the risk worthwhile? Why would someone plan a daylight robbery for prescription drugs? How did they know the exact delivery time? And if the plan seemed so precise, why did everything fall apart almost immediately? To understand that, you have to go back. Days before the morning of January 15th, 2026, something subtle began to happen at the pharmacy, something that did not raise alarms at the time. Pharmacy staffs received unexpected phone calls and emails asking about medication availability. These were not emergency calls, and they were not aggressive. On the surface, they sounded like routine customer inquiries. The questions, however, were unusually specific. Callers asked when deliveries typically arrived, whether certain high-demand injectable medications were in stock, and how often those drugs were restocked. At least one inquiry focused on timing, what day deliveries usually came in, and roughly what time. In a busy pharmacy, these questions did not immediately stand out. No single call felt dangerous, no threats were made, no names were given. On the morning of the robbery, the suspects arrived before the delivery truck. They were traveling in a gold-colored Toyota, an ordinary passenger car that blended easily into everyday traffic. There were no modifications, no stolen plates reported, and nothing about the vehicle that would immediately draw attention. That was the point. The car was parked near the pharmacy, close enough to observe the delivery area, but not so close that it appeared suspicious. From that position, the occupants had a clear view of the unloading zone and the surrounding area. They could see when the truck arrived, whether the driver was alone, and how the delivery was being handled. They did not circle the block repeatedly or move around.
As the driver focused on the boxes, 3 men approached the unloading area. They didn't rush in, they didn't yell, they didn't draw attention. They moved calmly and confidently, as if they knew exactly what was about to happen.
How the suspects came to know when to strike. Investigators pieced together the suspects' knowledge from several factors.
Everything secure at the pharmacy and learning center?
Yes, sir. All secure.
Good. Let's move.
The pharmacy followed a routine delivery schedule, common for small community pharmacies. Deliveries arrived on predictable weekdays and during standard business hours. There was no security escort, and unloading took place outside the store. The earlier phone calls and emails helped confirm that routine. The suspects didn't need insider access or leaked documents. They relied on open-ended questions, observation, and patience. By combining publicly visible behavior with basic confirmation, they reduced uncertainty enough to act. Their knowledge wasn't perfect, but it was sufficient. That limited knowledge was all they believed they needed. The moment they acted on it, the planning ended, and the consequences began. As the attackers fled the scene, the delivery driver, despite having been assaulted, was able to call for help, while pharmacy staff inside the store, alerted by the disturbance outside, also contacted emergency services.
Dispatch, Unit 12. All clear on patrol. Dispatch, Unit 12. Status check. Over.
Copy, Unit 12. Proceed with patrol.
A robbery was in progress, the delivery driver had been attacked, prescription drugs had been stolen, and the suspects had fled immediately after the incident. During these calls, witnesses provided a critical piece of information, identifying the suspect's escape vehicle as a gold-colored Toyota. This detail was relayed without delay, and within minutes, the vehicle description and incident summary were broadcast over police radio, transforming what had initially been reported as a robbery into an active search for fleeing suspects.
Police units were already nearby on routine patrol when the alert came in. A robbery, an assault, and stolen prescription drugs. One detail immediately stood out. The suspects were fleeing in a gold Toyota. The description was clear, including the make, color, and direction of travel, and officers moved without hesitation, positioning themselves along likely escape routes. Instead, the response was controlled and deliberate. The suspects attempted to leave the area, blending into regular traffic and continuing forward, but the window was already closing. They did not get far.
Roughly 2 miles from the pharmacy, the search came to an abrupt end. An officer spotted a vehicle that matched the description perfectly. A gold Toyota moving through ordinary traffic as if nothing had happened. The stop was made without spectacle. No crash, no escape attempt, just a sudden halt. Inside the car were all 3 suspects, exactly as described. And inside the vehicle was something even more telling. The stolen pharmaceutical boxes were still there, sealed, untouched, and intact. The drugs hadn't been transferred, hidden, or sold. The plan hadn't advanced. It hadn't even reached its second phase. The entire operation collapsed at the roadside. All 3 suspects were taken into custody on the spot. The vehicle was seized as evidence. The stolen medications were recovered in full. In a matter of minutes, what had been a violent robbery had turned into a closed scene. By that same morning, the crime was over.
As investigators worked backward through the timeline, one conclusion became clear. There was no hidden architect behind the robbery, no criminal syndicate, no outside handler directing the move from a distance. The planning came from within the group itself. Among the 3 suspects, police identified Joshua Dupree, 41, of Tamaqua, Pennsylvania, and Janoy Dawkins, 21, of Albany, New York, as the 2 adult participants, with Dupree viewed as the primary planner. Investigators determined that Dupree coordinated the interstate travel, selected the pharmacy, and helped decide when to strike, while Dawkins acted alongside him during the execution of the plan. The 3rd suspect, a 17-year-old juvenile from New York City, followed their lead. Together, they relied on a simple strategy built around timing, observation, and speed, believing that would be enough to get away. It wasn't. There was no second vehicle, no backup route, no buyer waiting, and no room for error. What unfolded was not the work of a criminal mastermind, but of 2 adults and a teenager acting on partial information, overestimating their control and underestimating how quickly the plan could collapse. In the end, the heist didn't unravel because of a rival or an informant. It failed because the plan itself was far weaker than they believed.